Hey guys, Jill here. Welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. I am so excited to be able to shoot this video today. One, I think it's really fun. Two, I love shooting videos like this because I love looking back in a few months from now when the garden is lush and full of all the bounty, seeing where it all started. So today starts our spring garden tours. I really had envisioned shooting this like weeks ago and time just got away from us. We've been really busy trying to finish things on our farm, the other farm I work for, trying to do some things over there. So I'm just now getting to this video, but it's perfect timing because it's really kind of overcast here today. And usually I always find the time to shoot videos in the middle of the day when it's sunny and you guys can't see really well. So this just worked out perfect. I'm finally getting this done. If you can see right over there, I've got a little helper with me. The two older girls are inside finishing some schoolwork, but it'll be me and Ivy June today. So let's get started. We have had some really bad storms this week. So when I was kind of walking through the garden this morning, I noticed some things gotten some damage done to them, but let's take a look. I'll show you guys one of my favorite things that's probably in the garden right now, oddly enough. And it is one of my favorite things because this brings my kids to the garden all the time. So Ivy, she stays with me out here constantly. She's really too young to know what's going on. Charlie's kind of hit and miss. Peyton's really invested in helping me like grow things. Like she thinks the process of growing food's really cool, which I'm very, very fortunate for. But these lovely strawberries, my girls come out here every day and pick these. My friend Sean grew these. We'll transplant them out in the fall when they start growing runners, but right now we come out here and pick the best, juiciest strawberries every day. It's one of my favorite things. We've got strawberries planted in another bed, but these are like 2-year-old strawberries. Those are just from this season, so I won't be able to get anything off of those until next year, maybe even the next year. But these plants are good, and the best thing about them is they're in these little decorative pots. So right now I can just like leave them out on my like little washing table here, and they do really well. This is actually my favorite variety. She's 10.5 months old, really cute, likes to eat all the rocks in my garden. Ivy June, what are you doing? What are you doing? She's growing real nice. You growing real nice? Yeah. All throughout my garden, you'll see these citronella plants. Nathan actually bought these for me from our local co-op. So everything in my garden was grown by me or grown by local farmers except these citronella plants. There's a lot of them he bought. We've got them kind of placed all throughout the garden just to keep the bugs at bay, and they work really well. Like I said, he just got them from the local co-op. And then this beautiful little lavender plant is, I think, a Bonnie's, and he just bought that at our local farm store. But everything else has been grown by me, started by me, or some friends of mine. And I really enjoy that. I pride myself in that. Shopping local is super, super important to me. It's something I really encourage you guys to do. There's actually a lot of stuff in my garden that I still have to replant. Lord bless it. When we get to the cucamelons, I've replanted those so many times. I've got some bush beans that didn't come out. They're kind of sporadic. I'll be re-sowing those today. Some more squash and zucchini. We'll go over that. So I still have a lot of things left to direct. So, but I think we're early enough in the season and we've had such cool snaps here, like really, really cool snaps, that I think I'm okay direct sowing these things later in the season. Start with this first bed. This was a last minute thought of bed. What's wrong? Thought of bed last year. So we were fortunate enough to have all the railroad ties given to us. Nathan, most of them, like all those back there, were given to us. Nathan just had to go get them, which was a pain, but totally worth it. And then I needed another extra bed. So we had all these center blocks. I don't know if y'all can see. We had all these center blocks on our farm and just made this extra bed out of it. This year I've got tomatoes in it, I've got these Brussels sprouts, and we've had these Brussels sprouts planted for quite some time, actually. Brussels sprouts don't do that well in our area. And I don't know why, but I've heard from several different farmers that Brussels sprouts just aren't doing well. But these have grown so much since we've had the cool snap. So it's kind of a toss-up. I'm really fortunate. Like some things like my tomatoes are kind of like lagging, but then my cool crops are still doing really well. And I refuse to pull them up because I'm just now seeing the little nodules on here to where they're starting to make. So I'm just gonna let these keep going in here and pray to God that maybe for once in my life I can grow a Brussels sprout. Typically, I don't move my peppers out until really late in the season anyways. They do not like the cooler nights, like I was saying. And mine were just having a really hard time getting like a leg up. I've had them in the greenhouse. I've had them under heat mats. And I don't know, I started some really cool varieties that I got from Baker Creek. And I'll list them below and I will try them again. But peppers are something I struggle with every year. If you guys have any advice, let's take a look at the tomato varieties I've got here. I will tell you though, on this trellis, so I've got a trellis over each walkway, the beginning of each walkway. This one I've got a Boston pickling cucumber, a Tokyo green, which is a new variety I've never grown. On the other side I have an Armenian and a straight 8. We grew the Armenian cucumber last year at the edge of our tomato bed. So we put one at the edge of our large tomato bed and one at the edge of our cherry tomato bed. I love the Armenian. They're a beautiful ribbed cream color, very mild, don't have a lot of seeds. Like the kids enjoyed them a lot. They're very, very invasive. They're very viney, almost like a moonflower. Like a moonflower is a very viney plant. The same thing with an Armenian cucumber. I was really surprised. It ended up taking over majority of our garden area. So we agreed to trellis it this year. That's one of those that I have a small sprout coming up, but I'm going to go ahead and direct sow another one and see how they do. Are you eating the grass or is that spinach? You want some spinach? I'm going to get you some. Come here. You going to come to me? Here, eat something you can actually eat. There you go. There you go. Tell me how it tastes. You didn't eat my spinach? Ivy June, you didn't eat my spinach? Oh, a rock tasted. Usually, I plant tomatoes in this bed. This bed is full. The far end bed down there is full. Since I grew a lot of lettuce this year, and I did, this whole bed is full of lettuce and spinach. It's doing so well, I refuse to tear it up, which has made me get really, really creative on where to stuff in my tomato plants. It's been quite of a challenge, but I thought that this would have, my lettuce would have been done, and so it wouldn't be a problem. I could just take that out and plant my tomatoes in there. But since we've been having these cool fronts, my lettuce is thriving. I cannot even explain to you how well my lettuce is doing. So well that I refuse to tear it up. So I'll probably end up succession planting my tomatoes, and as this starts to bolt and as it gets too hot, I've still got a ton of tomatoes in the greenhouse. I'll take those and plant these out here and just harvest them later. Down here we've got our romaine. I have harvested from these several times, and I mean, just look at that. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful. This is a red head lettuce that tastes really good. That's another thing, is because the weather's been so nice, we've not dealt with any bitterness in our lettuce or anything. And I get asked a lot, what do you put on your lettuce to make them look so good? I have not put a single thing on any of my lettuce. No diatomaceous earth, not a thing. And then in between the middle, it was really late, but I've got some chard just kind of thrown in there. I say it's late, but since the weather's been so nice, they might actually make. Spinach. These looked really poor early in the season. They did not do good. They were laced. Pests were getting them. They just weren't growing. The leaves were yellow when I transplanted them out. They looked very similar to this, but much worse, the entire plant. And I've just been so pleased at how well they have bounced back, and I literally harvest spinach off of here every single morning. Now on this trellis, I've got my tromboncino, and I've got one over there as well. Those of you who have been following me for any bit of time know that tromboncino is one of my favorite things to grow. I will grow it every year. We're being a lot smarter about it this year. Last year we had it in the center block garden, in the center block bed on the very, very end. We had a very small, we trellised it, but it was like maybe up to here. And it just didn't do well. They grew so abundantly that the trellis, it was like hog wire. It ended up like collapsing in the middle. So this year we got smart. We put it on this big old cattle panel, and I put one on each side. So we're just gonna let these babies grow. They kind of got shocked a little bit whenever I moved them out, because I moved them out. We had like a week of warm, good, typical springs here in Arkansas. And then we had that crazy first cold front. And squash is one of those things, squash and zucchini, they do not like being messed with at all. Like the influx and the weather, they just don't thrive with. They're not one of those. Like a tomato's kind of resilient, but squash and zucchini are much more temperamental. So I was a bit worried. I actually have two other ones, tromboncino squashes, that I've just kept in the greenhouse because I'm like, if these babies die, I need to be able to replace them. But thankfully they're hanging on pretty well, so we didn't actually have to worry about that. And then back here, I'll show you what we got going on. The beans are another thing. I started the beans really prematurely, and the reason I did that is I knew I couldn't get my tomatoes out. Like, I knew that was one thing that I really kind of had to be mindful of the weather and know, like, I don't have all of these tomatoes to be able to replace. The beans are one of those things I was direct sowing, so I knew, well, if a cold front takes them, they're much easier to cover up to. Like, if a cold front came, which it did, I put jars over each of them. They were still really small, and then I tucked sheets in on them. But it was one of those things that I was willing to take a risk on my beans because I had so many seeds. And I'll try to remember what some of these are, but a really sweet viewer of mine, our follower on Instagram, sent me a lot of these. And so the frosted, you can see down here at the very beginning, or even down here at the front of the beds, the frost got some of them, and I just re-sowed them. Something else that we've done is we've just got onions stuck at the end of the bed. So we just plugged them in here. They don't take up much room at all. We knew they would be done before the tomatoes got big, so we weren't really worried about it. And then I've got onions all the way down there. So yeah, those are looking nice. There's some more citronella. All right, so let's come over here. Here's a pepper plant that my friend Lauren grew over at Berkey Farms. As you can see, he's been this size for a while. He's just not loving the weather right now. And I've got a tomato plant here. And then when these get done, I'll plant some more. But that's a pink boar. That's another Wild Boar Farms variety. It's beautiful. It's much bigger than a normal cherry. So I would say it's a pretty good size. Oh, look. These are starting to put off little... Look at those. How sweet. These are the Scarlet runner beans. The bees, I'm surprised I even planted these again this year, if I'm being honest. The bees demolished them last year. But since we are a pollinator-friendly garden, I'm going to keep them on there. Look at that little ladybug. Alright, let's talk about my beets for a second, guys. I have always direct sown beets. And carrots, any like root vegetable, I've direct sown just because I thought that that's like what you're supposed to do. And then a friend of mine told me that you can actually transplant them out and you have much better success with that. So I thought this year I would experiment and transplant out some beets. And surprisingly enough, we don't actually eat beets. It's something that we want to incorporate more in our diet as far as like consuming them raw or roasted or things like that. We use beet powder, however, a lot. We use it in our smoothies and things like that. So that's what I had intended to do with these, was like dehydrate them, grind them down, and use the powder. I felt like I was really late on getting these out, so they stayed in their little 6-cell containers way too long, which I feel like kind of stunted them a little when I put them out. And then I have dealt with pests so bad. I have actually sprinkled diatomaceous earth on them. It's rain, so you do have to reapply that after the rain. So that's something I probably need to come out here today and do. But as you can see, I mean, some of them look okay, but then you have the ones like this that have been literally just taken down to the nub. I've got Mammoth, I've got Bull's Blood, I've got this one. It's really pretty. It's like a pink and white. So yeah, I'm pretty disappointed in that. I don't actually think that I'll get beets this year, which is really disappointing, but at least I can be better prepared next year. I think that's the great thing about a garden, is if something doesn't work out this season, I know it's kind of cliche, but it's true. If something doesn't work out this season, try again the next season. I have been trying to grow beets for a long time, and each season I do something wrong, and each season I found out a new thing I need to do. So for instance, I really started these like not ideally when you should. So these should have been out in the garden for far longer than they have. So I think next year what I'll do is I'll plant them as a fall winter crop when I do my carrots, and I think I'll have a much better success rate doing it that way than the way that I've done them in the spring. Our springs here are just hard. Like, I don't even do spring carrots because springs in Arkansas are really, I mean, this spring's kind of different. This spring has actually been a spring, but for the most part, it just gets really hot really fast. Like, we've had several days in the 80s and high 70s, and, you know, crops like this just don't thrive in those conditions. So that's something I've noted. I've put in my little journal, and I'll just try to do better next year. So these were really small whenever our frost came and took them out, and these were noodle beans, Chinese noodle beans. So I'll replant these. All these other ones, I'm trying to remember. I think I've tagged some of them. I know there's purple potted, Cherokee Trail of Tears. There's all sorts of things. I'll know there's the Scarlet runner bean that we had saw, obviously. I know whenever they come up, then I'll know. And I've just been going through and trying to help some of these run up a bit better. Here's some of the new ones that I planted coming up, and it's really not that big of a deal, but they're looking fantastic. Here's some more my Brussel Sprouts. You see those sweet little nodules in there. So we've got 4 right here. And some more onions. Let's see, I'm not actually sure what these tomatoes are. This is a German pink. This is a big pink slicer. This will be my first year growing this. But it comes highly, highly recommended. And the transplants and the starts did so well. Let's see. This is a black crim. This came from my friend Jessica too. I didn't realize how many of her tomatoes I had in my garden. Let's see. That's a pink boar. I love those so much that some of these I actually have duplicates in the garden, and that's one of them. And here's the sunrise bumblebee that is in the family with the pink bumblebee. They were just, all my plants are really short and stocky, but we do the plant sale every year, and that kind of took, I usually sell all my best stuff there, and what's left over is what's in my garden. And there's a Kellogg breakfast. It's a beautiful yellow slicer, a lot like the Dr. Witch. I feel like I will forever be hauling rock. Me and this thing have a love-hate relationship lately. So all that rock back there, we've been filling in all of our walkways. This whole area. I bought a greenhouse frame from a friend of mine, just a small 8x10. And it's gonna go in the middle here. We've got the greenhouse over there, back behind the back porch. So we'll continue to use, I just need more space. And being able to have a greenhouse in the garden is really, really appealing to me. That way I can take starts out and just immediately, like I think back there, that'll be my starts that I sell at the plant sale, and maybe all the ones here will just be ones I can immediately take out and put in our garden. So maybe one day. My goal was to finish the rock this week, but like I said, the rains kind of put a damper on my plans, but it will be done, you guys. Next time I do a video, maybe this will be done. So here's another bed idea. We had scrap tin on the farm, and we made this, and then this wood was just on the farm. And we've got a couple of those. That one's not placed yet. But just you know, get creative, you guys. If y'all are needing beds and you don't want to spend the money on material, there's a lot of things you can make a garden bed out of. But here we have more romaine. We've got, this bed really needs to be mulched, but that's not been a priority. We've got strawberries in between. This will permanently be our strawberry bed, but I didn't have a lot of strawberries, so I just plugged in my romaine lettuce. But I'm telling you, look at this. I am a lettuce girl. That thing is huge. We've harvested off of these, I can't even tell you how many times. We've let our family come and get all the lettuce that they want. It just keeps on going. And then over here, I direct sowed bush beans that a friend of mine gave me. I don't know the varieties. I let my sweet kiddos mark them. And they didn't use permanent markers. So when I came out here to see what they were, I was like, oh, that'll be fun whenever they come up. But as you can see, some didn't come up. So I'm going to come in today and just fill this bed in quite a bit. This squash bed. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you know what I have been dealing with. My sweet little Tula, my Great Pyrenees, I got her from my friend. She lived on a farm, but she was in their goat yard and never left the goat yard. And here, she's just had free reign of the farm to do whatever she wants to do, which happens to be dig in my squash bed. So this thing was full of squash and zucchini. And that little heifer has literally dug up my plants 4 times. I have transplanted out squash and zucchini 4 different times. Finally, I just asked my friends for all the advice. And a lot of people said, give them another area to dig in. So we filled up a little kiddie pool full of dirt, which she has been using. And then they said, put chili powder in your soil, which I did that. And she did not enjoy that either. So I haven't been brave enough to plug in these other 2. Because I know as soon as I do that, she'll come back out here. But so far, she's left them alone, and I will be replanting these. I will also do, squash bugs here are awful, like absolutely awful. I know a lot of people that don't even grow their squash and zucchini until the late part of summer, which is what I'll do. I will let these go. Once the squash bugs overtake everything, I'll rip them out. I'll have more seeds started in the greenhouse, and I will replant probably July and get a late summer harvest off of them. But I've got black beauty, zucchini. On this trellis, I have planted cucamelons more times than I admit. I cannot grow cucamelons either. You guys, any tips and tricks? I've direct sowed them. I've transplanted them out. I don't know, and it's not helping that we keep having these influxes in our weather. So I've direct sowed a lot. I mean, probably 10 on each side, just hoping at least maybe 2 will catch. I don't know, so we'll see what happens there. Any tips though, I am definitely open to listening to them. Oh man, so that storm we had, the winds were pretty crazy, as you can see. My poor little tomato plants need some loving. Some of these need to be staked up, and some of these are missing like bottom foliage. So I don't know if maybe Nathan came out here and pruned. We heavily prune our tomatoes because we plant them a lot closer together. And then we trellis them up on this T-post conduit system. And we got this idea from Josh Satin. I'll link his video below. It's a really good idea. We tossed around the idea of cattle panels, which we've seen done a lot. And we liked that idea, but the reason we didn't do it was cost. So the T-post trellis system was much cheaper. We already had T-post on hand. And then another thing is we knew growing in high tunnels were something we were going to be doing. And we knew that that wasn't a good model for a high tunnel. So we wanted to start working with the trellis system that we could mimic, adjust slightly, and do it in a high tunnel and be successful. And so essentially what you do is you take twine and you will tie around your plants, and they'll go to the top of that on either side. And as your tomato plant grows, you just continue to move the twine around the plant, and it trellises them up to the very top. It allows pruning to be much easier. You can get more in a smaller space. We've just really enjoyed it. We did this method last year, had a lot of good success. It was just, our plants thrive. So this is one that we will definitely be mimicking in our high tunnels. Obviously we won't have If we did the T-post, we'd do them much closer together in a high tunnel because we'd be growing a lot more. All right, let's get started. You guys have asked, and I'm going to tell you all of these varieties. I typically do pretty short 10-15 minute videos, but you guys have asked what varieties I'm growing, what I've liked, what I've grown before. So this video is going to be a bit longer, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. As always, if y'all have any questions, comments, whatever, leave them below. I would love to hear from you guys. You guys know I love trying new things in my garden all the time. This year you'll see a bit more things that are tried and true. I'm not trying near as many varieties, new varieties, as I was last year. Just given the current state that we're in, I wanted things that I knew were going to produce well. Granted, I've got a few new ones thrown in there, but for the most part, these are ones I know are going to produce well. I know I can get rid of to my consumer. I know that I can and preserve them myself, and that was a big deciding factor in what all I grew. And I put the pine shavings down. We get asked a lot about this. We mulch with pine shavings. We've done straw in the past, but they all have wheat seed in them. The question I've been asked a lot with this is, does it not add acidity to your soil? It 100% does. We also lime all of our beds at the beginning of the season, which lime balances out the pH level of acidity in your soil. So we've honestly not had a problem with that. Here is a hillbilly potato leaf. These are beautiful yellow and orange streaked. I had a lot of really large fruits off of these last year. I really liked them. This is a Granny Cantrell German Red. These were really good production variety. That's the funny thing. So in the past, I've only grown heirloom tomatoes, and heirloom tomatoes, they're not as production driven as a hybrid. So I've been pleasantly surprised at how well these have done, since they're not actually all production crops. Which is something like if you're growing for market or you're growing for profit, you want to lean more towards those high producing crops that are more, you know, uniform, and you don't have cracking and splitting and all the things. But that one was a red slicer that I had not a single problem with last year. A lot of them I harvested well over a pound and a half fruit off of, and so I was very pleased with those. And this one, little guy back here, is a big rainbow. It's also another streaked. I've grown this, I think 2 or 3 years ago, and loved it so much, but then I didn't have the seeds for it anymore, and then someone gave me the seeds, so I started them again this year, and I'm real excited to see how that one does. Let's see. Dr. Witchy, one of my absolute favorites. I've grown this for several years now. Will always grow it. Surprisingly to most of you guys, because I am kind of known as a crazy tomato lady, I don't actually really like tomatoes. It was just recently that I started eating them, like just not in things. But the Dr. Witchy is a very sweet tomato. So I like the sweet ones. It's the acidic ones that I kind of steer away from. Like, I'm not one that's just going to go out to the garden and like grab a tomato and start munching on it. Even though I grow a lot of tomatoes, some people are very surprised. They're like, what? You don't really like tomatoes? I'm like, I like the sweet ones. I like the Dr. Witchy ones. And I try all of them. So, yeah, at least I try them all. Here we have a pineapple, which is another streaked one. Let's see. This looks like some sort of potato leaf. It's probably a German. Yeah, German pink. It has those potato leaf as well. And let's see. A beefsteak. This is just your classic red beefsteak. I've actually never grown these before, but my consumer around here really likes these, so these are ones that I just grow because I know I can get rid of them. Here's another climbing triple crop. These come super recommended to me. I grew them last year, and honestly I was not impressed, but my source tells me that they're so good that I gave them another place in my garden. And down here, this one's beautiful. I think it's funny in my garden too, you can tell the ones that I properly hardened off and the ones I didn't. So this is a dark galaxy. I actually think this isn't a large, this is a, I've never grown it before, but I think it's like a cherry, a little bit bigger than a cherry if I'm remembering. Here we have my favorite tomato of all time, the giant Belgium. And this goes without saying, these are huge. Most of mine were well over 2 pounds. I could not find these seeds anywhere, and a sweet friend on Instagram sent me these from a local farmer that lives in his area, so very appreciative to him for those. Here's another Kellogg breakfast. So I do have multiples in here. Let's see, I think this is this is another giant Belgium. I had to grow a lot of these. That's a white Tomasol. It has a very smoky flavor. Not huge slicer, but it was really fun, and I liked that it was super versatile. So, and then this is a new one. It's a terracotta. This is an orange, kind of like a paste tomato. And there's your Cherokee purples. These are very, very popular in our area. Are asked for quite a bit. Here's an Arkansas Traveler. These are not a large slicer at all, but they are also very popular. I get asked for them a lot, so this is a new one I decided to go ahead and grow just because I knew I could get rid of it. Let's see. Another Dr. Witchy. Hillbilly potato leaf. So yeah, I have multiples in here. There's another Cherokee purple, another climbing triple crop. What is this one? Oh, this is a new one. So this is a Berkey tie-dye pink. So really, really pretty. It's this streaked tie-dye pink, green, beautiful. I just really wanted to try and grow this year because the pictures looked fantastic. And I did a poll on my Instagram and everyone said to grow these, that they were really fun. And there I've got another German pink. Yeah, so I have a lot of tomatoes, and I still have about 10 that I want to get in the garden that we're trying to get creative. We actually have a fun video that we plan on doing, but it will be a cheap, innovative way to grow plants if you need to. So stay tuned for what that is. And we're doing it because I have these tomatoes that I desperately want to put in the garden and I just don't have room for them. So we started thinking, what is that, like a cheap, easy way we could make a bed or grow these in? So we're working on that right now. Stay tuned. Here's our Muscadine Patch looking beautiful. Here's our pea patch. They're starting to come up. Tula and Simba kind of rumbled through this patch once we planted it. So a lot of it's pretty sporadic, and I think what I'm going to do is go through and plant okra. Since okra grows tall, I've got some okra starts in the greenhouse. I think I'm going to go and plant those in between the areas that they've dug up. I just feel like that would be a good use of the space. And we were going to till an area over here, but it's been so wet that we just haven't been able to do that. And then back there is our blueberries. We never got around to trimming them this year, unfortunately, but they're full of blooms. We'll go take a look at them. Well, it certainly doesn't seem to mind that we didn't prune it properly. This thing is full of blueberries, and the best thing about it is there's so many bees and butterflies that come around here, which we absolutely love that. These things are just loaded. Wow. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, seeing what's going on in my garden, all the plans that we have. I cannot wait to do a video in a few months and show you guys all of the fun ways that all this stuff is growing. I love doing these videos and looking back. You have to be sweet to the lettuce, okay? You gonna eat it? Yeah. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and Ivy June today, and I look forward to seeing y'all soon. Yay, Ivy June, you did so good. Yeah.